We are finally live. All right. We're finally live. Just got hammered with multiple visitors in a row. And that makes things a little bit challenging when you're trying to get launched on the live stream. The guy who's usually here with me to kind of meet and greet people on Thursday afternoons, he's on a shopping trip today. He's off buying scads of supplies. So we're going to get interrupted again. He's off buying scads of supplies to do a great big terrain project, which is going to be an Inquisitor project. So 54 millimeter scale terrain and lots of it. So let's just get cracking with what I got to do today. First thing, we're going to do a bunch of endless spells. Endless spells, name of the game today. I've got Warhammer Whirlwind. Don't know what the real name is. Big gold disky thing. Chronomatic cogs. I know that one because I use it all the time. Quicksilver blades. That's a fun one. We're going to do that one too. And of course, working on the burning head, the flaming head, whatever it's called, burning head, I think. And yep. So one of the funny things, some of these models are really, really well made, well engineered, well cast, and you don't have much in the way of mold lines or even or gaps on them. But sometimes you do get really crazy gaps and things, and this burning head is one of those. So it always has like a line around it's very difficult to get that to fill in just when you glue it. So you press it in, you get the glue to squeeze in and fill the gap, and it never quite seems to fill it in properly, right? So you're always left with that gap. So the product that I really like for that, you could use green stuff, you can fill with green stuff, with gap filler, with Milliput, all those kind of stuff. But my favorite company, Reaper Miniatures, makes something called Brush-On Sealer. And Brush-On Sealer is basically a slightly thicker acrylic medium with no paint in it, nothing like that. It's just basic clear acrylic medium. And because it's thick, if you put it over things like a little bit of mold line or a small gap, or sometimes when you got a pewter miniature, they get like little pitting in it from the cooling process, or there was a bit of carbon that burned away as the mold filled or whatever, leaves a hole. So this stuff, right, you brush it on. There it is right there. There we go, right here. Clear acrylic goop. And you just brush it on over the thing you want to fill. And when it dries, it partially fills in those gaps. So often you have to do 3-4 coats to really get it to go smooth. For very small imperfections, 1 coat will do. But if you have a bigger one, it sometimes takes a few more coats. If you put water in it, it shrinks, and then you get the gap back again. But I find that that's enough to just kind of, for these endless spells, which are basically just going to be a bunch of dry brushing, you don't really have to go over the top to get it to look pretty good. And a little gap like that, just fill it enough that the gap doesn't really show, and you end up with a pretty good result. I'll show you one that I did the same way. The gap barely shows. 5-minute paint job. This particular burning head is going to be for my my night haunt. So this is my night haunt burning head. Okay, and as you can see, that gap right in there barely shows up at all. And that was just filled with a little bit of this brush-on sealer. It's a pretty good product. And the other place that I find it really useful, I learned this from Elizabeth Beckley from Miniature Monthly. Mix that in with your base coat. So you would say, like, it was a skin tone class I took from her, and she mixed this in with Reaper Mahogany Brown as the skin tone base to give it a rich brown under to a pale skin tone. And she put this stuff in the first coat, let it dry really let it dry, and then it made like the kind of slightly defective parts of the miniature, like on its skin, smooth in. The female miniature with some very deep wrinkles, it partly filled them in, smoothed those out, made the skin look smoother, look a bit younger, and very effective. Worked really, really well. But if you add water to it as well, it shrinks as it dries, and sometimes that can not quite look like what you're looking for, but it yeah, good product. Maybe somebody out there watching this has never heard of it and tries it and uses it and loves it and is surprised. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to be putting... Let's take a quick look at the photographs of these things, see what colors they're supposed to be. Okay, so this crazy disc thing, whatever that's called, I don't really know what that's called. It's called the Dias Arcanum. So we are going to be... Let's paint those as little gemstones for no particular reason. And we'll paint these little arcs white, but everything else is going to be like a brassy color. So let's look at the photo of what that looks like from their website. Let's see. There it is. Drag it to spin. Sort of a brassy color. That looks to me like brassy brass or tin bits or I don't know. What's that one called? Balthazar gold, something like that. With a brown wash, so probably accurate earth shade. And then we'll dry brush a bunch of lighter gold over top of that. And it looks a bit like the disc in the center is gold colored. Yeah, and maybe those runes right there are silver, and there's a little bit of purple in there. I'm not going to go that complex with it, I don't think. But that should be enough to make it look pretty cool. So we'll paint it Balthazar gold. The other one we're going to look at is Chronomatic Cogs. There they are. Similar. Brass and gold. Brass with a dark brown wash. A little bit of silver, a little bit of gold. And then these smoky bits at the bottom look like an ethereal kind of a bluish color. I'll dry brush that color on after we do the gold. So there we go. There's our two that are going to be gold. And then the other ones that we're looking at today, the Burning Head. Flamio, hot man, there he is. We're going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to make the eyes dark and the skull light. And then I'm going to do the same idea with the flames towards the trail. And then what else are we going to do today? Quicksilver Blades. Have a quick look at their version of Quicksilver Blades. Oh yeah, it's that sort of gold-colored wispy smoke. Yellowy wispy smoke. So we'll do that, I think, with Reaper Palomino Gold. We'll dry brush that on, and then we'll paint the metallics afterwards. So there's my sequence of operations then. I'm going to keep doing layers of brush on sealer on that until I get that hole filled in. Then I'm going to paint it in this style, but flaming. We're going to do dry brush smoky on that one. And then we're going to do dry brush smoky on that one. And we're going to do dry brush gold smoky on this one. Then we'll do gold. Then we'll do silver. Then we'll do washes. And then silver and gold dry brushing, and we'll be done. And like some sort of a miracle, we'll have 5 endless spells painted in the next, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. Mild sarcasm there for you. Okay, so let's get out our heavy-duty dry brushing assault team. We've got a whole bunch of makeup brushes here that we're going to use for this purpose. I also picked up a bunch of the, what are these called? These are Army Painter dry brushes. I've used the Artist Opus ones. These I can get at a reasonable price for beginning customers that are here at the studio. So I brought in a bunch of these to just try them out, to see if they work all right, see whether I like. They feel like they're a little bit softer than the Artist Opus ones, and the edge of that metal is not quite as nice as the Artist Opus one. So I worry that that's going to chisel people's minis if they're pressed too hard. So we're going to play with that today and see what happens. I've also got my standby standard makeup brushes. This one's partly dried up, so it's stiffer. This one is super soft. We use that for terrain all the time. We'll use those to make our smoky looking effects on all this stuff. So step 1 is gonna be chestnut gold on the smoke of these Quicksilver swords. So we need to find chestnut gold. It is somewhere here on my very messy paint desk. That's the disaster, which is currently my painting desk. We've been doing a lot of painting this week, so everything is a huge disaster. So Chestnut gold. I know you're right here on the table. I will find you probably in a couple of seconds. Let's just keep thinking, keep looking. There's Palomino gold. That's one of the ones I want to use. Buckskin pale we're going to need. Maybe I'll use sun yellow. Buckskin pale. Buckskin pale. Dragon gold. Nope. Leather. Nope. I periodically clean off the whole desk so I can find my paints again. Then I immediately lose them all again by the end of the next day. It's one of those diminishing returns. Buckskin pale. That's the third layer for the highlighting. The dry brush. And then we need chestnut gold. Chestnut gold. It looks like 19 other colors. So I'm just going to have to start pulling all those colors off the desk until I find the one I actually want. So we'll keep doing that. Keep going, keep going. Ochre, khaki, gold skin, blah, 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 blah. Tan skin. Did I put it back in the wrong spot on the shelf? I didn't. Could be one of those paints that somebody stole. It happens sometimes around here. Chestnut gold. There we go. Chestnut gold. That is going to be the first color on our lovely smoky golden sword effect we're going to do here. Okay, so for that, I am really literally just going to slap it on like a nut. So let's use a slightly bigger brush for that. That is the technical term, like a nut. Slap on the paint. That's how we roll. Okay, so there's our happy paint setup. And I'm not the artist opus guy, so don't be horrified too badly by my really amateur hour sort of high-speed slap the paint on process. Remember, there's going to be a couple more layers of highlight on top of this, so I'm not too worried about this being perfect. This is just to give an orangey undertone over the black on this, so it looks a little bit smokier. Nothing too complicated. I quite like this spell in-game as well. These particular ones are for a commissioned customer, but is not looking for them to look particularly good. He just wants them to be quick on the table. In fact, the painting process that I described for these is probably about 5 times as much effort as he wants put into them, but I kind of feel like painting these today, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a whole bunch of endless spells, painted better than the guy wants. And the way I roll around here is if I'm in the mood to paint something and I end up painting it better than you asked me for, I don't charge any extra for that, obviously. You just quietly walk away with your model that you didn't have to pay much for, and don't tell anybody. That's all I ask. Don't tell people that I do that. Of course, I just admitted it to the internet, but you know, whatever. Not do anything too special here. Alright, so there's the first color, that first gold color on there. Not exactly a soft dry brush, right? It's a bit thicker than that. And it doesn't have to look perfect. That's good enough. Okay, now the next one that we're moving on to is going to be, we're going to do the blue, smoky blue color on the chromatic cogs, and the whirlwind hammers of death. So the whirlwind hammers of death, I believe their base color, those are obviously done with some kind of shades and contrast paints. Yeah. So probably what I'm going to do, I'm going to dry brush a couple of neutral colors on there, probably like a medium gray of some kind, and then I will airbrush purple and blue, and then come back and paint the metallics afterwards. That's the plan. Here's what I'm looking at. These right in here. There's 2 tones. There's another photo. Let's look at that other photo. Yeah, that's clearly like a wet blended blue into purple. I'll just I'll just airbrush purple and blue over the top of this thing and then paint all the gold hammers afterwards. And that would look very, very similar to that. Bear in mind, like I said, the customer is not looking for the top end paint job on all these things. So I'm going to start with a mid-tone gray. I think I'm going to start with this wolf gray today. So let's go back to that, wolf gray. That's what we're going to dry brush. Why did I pick that one? Random. Second color is going to be Snow Shadow. That over that is going to give me a nice bit of a highlight, and I think I will quickly do probably this bone color, something like that at the end. That might be too much effort. Maybe I'll just do those two, and then those two, and then ink, and then back into the main colors. So there we go. There's a wolf gray. We need a lot of that because this is a big mini. We'll do the same thing on the chromatic cogs. And I might hit them with a blue contrast paint or a blue wash or something like that in the middle. Let's see how that works. This guy's huge. Let's try our brand new giant friggin' this thing brush. So we need just the smallest amount of water on that brush just to damp it a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm going to work that water in on the wet palette. I know this is not the right technique. I'm going to work it into the brush so the brush is damp. Get a little bit of the gray paint. And then on my wet palette I work it. I know you're supposed to use a texture palette, but I don't. I do have one. I just don't like using it. And what I find is that this kind of smooths the paint in. Just need to take the worst of it off the tip. There we go. And then I'm going to start my very light dry brushing. And as I get a feel for the brush, I'll know whether to take more paint off or not. I suppose I could do that on the camera. That might be of interest to people to actually see. There we go. So we'll just gently dry brushing. Bear in mind there's going to be another coat of another color which is lighter, so a higher value paint on top of this. And my aim is going to be to ink these afterwards. So it doesn't have to be super clean. Just has to be enough of a value to show the tint that I'm going to put on it through the airbrush, and for the shapes to show up. It's a bit like doing a what's that thing called? Wow, brain power thing. Zenithal highlight, or a value sketch. In that we're increasing the value of the highlights, so that when we put a lighter color paint over it, the highlights show through. You could also call this slap chop if you wanted to, but this is not really like slap chop, because I am going to use an airbrush. I use an airbrush all the way through just about everything I do, and I know for some people that is like heresy, but I don't play 40K, so I don't care if I'm a heretic. Whatever. And what I like about the airbrush is the efficiency. And I like that you can do very, very refined work with the airbrush as well, by which I mean very, very thin glazes, tints, filters, all those good things that really just improve the overall look of the finished figure. This wolf ink, or wolf gray from Reaper, is an interesting color. It's one of their Bone series paint, so it's a high density paint, and it has a very funny like not an unpleasant odor, but it does have a sort of an odor to it, and it's very distinctive, and it's the only paint from Reaper that has this exact odor. And I don't know if anybody else who's out there airbrushes notices, but like certain paints have certain smells. Like the Vallejo paints, the Game Air paints, all have sort of a sweet, almost sugary smell to them through the airbrush. And it probably means that my mask isn't good enough, but I wonder if they put it in there so people can tell that their mask filters are failing and they need to change their mask filters. But it is sort of a sickly, sweet, sugary smell. It's not unpleasant. But the worst part about this particular endless spell is that how do you paint all this stuff down in the middle? Right? How do you paint the middle of the vortex of hammer death? I know this has probably got a specific name, but that's what I call it. And it's going to be very tough to paint all those shapes. You kind of got to reach through, paint them somehow from the outside. And I was thinking about painting it before assembling it, but in the end I didn't do that. I'm sure people out there do paint it without assembling it. It probably looks better. I don't know. Done is done. And this has not taken me very long to paint, so that's about what I care about. Like I said, when I said that the customer's not looking for the highest standards on these, it averages out to about $3 each I'm getting paid for these, or maybe $5, something like that. Not very much. And, but he's one of my favorite customers. The same customer I painted that Star Drake for. This Star Drake. And I'm quite happy. Go a little bit further, a little bit extra for that particular customer. Okay, so there's our first coat of Greg. Let that dry, and I'm going to do something similar on the bottom of the chromatic cogs. We'll work that paint in there. And I know like people work the texture palette with this stuff, but I like doing it on the wet palette, and I just find it just keeps the brush moist enough. And my Kleenex off to the side is a little bit damp. So if I need to just wipe the paint right off the tip of the brush, I can do that without having that problem of all the moisture being sucked out of the brush and leaving it so dry that it doesn't function well. And I find that that works reasonably well, having the paint on the wet palette. And when I'm doing a project like this, the paint is not going to sit long enough to absorb a ton of water from the palette, so the paint doesn't get goopy or that sort of soft, runny paint that really no good for this sort of thing. I can't really reach through there very easily, so I'm going to have to switch to a smaller brush, I think. But this is going to hopefully have the effect that I'm looking for, just to quickly give these cogs a little bit of visible relief. And what I'll do is at the end, I'll dry brush it. After the gold's painted, I'll dry brush again the final dry brush color to kind of smooth the transition between the metallics and the smoke. So small dry brush, slightly wet the tip, load it with a little bit of paint. That's too much paint. Work it in, and then I'm going to be able to reach through and get further into the middle there with this smaller dry brush. So if you're interested, the Army Painter pack of dry brushes has 3 dry brushes in it, 3 different sizes. I don't remember what the MSRP is. I think it's about $30 Canadian. Not sure what it would be in the US, probably about $20, $25, somewhere in that range. Not an expensive set of brushes. And they appear to be made of ox hair. And so far I have found them to be pretty tough. Like, I've been using this small one quite a lot, just to kind of beat the snot out of it and see how well it lasts. Because, you know, a beginner using this the first time is really going to be hard on it. And I wanted to kind of see how well they endure that sort of abuse. They don't do too badly. So there's the bottom of that one. And then we need to do 1, 2. What am I missing? I guess that'd be this one that needs to be done next. So this one we're going to do the same sort of thing. This will also give me an idea of whether or not my technique with the brush on sealer is doing what it was supposed to do, or not. Maybe it's not working. And I can see that it's not. Like, I can see that there's a little bit of an effect going on there. That's way too wet. Let's try to take that off. There we go. Still too wet. It's better. And normally for a flame effect, I'm going to want to start with something very, very light so that the flame colors look very intense and saturated. And in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep going with this wolf gray, and then I'm going to be going up to a warmer white, and then when it comes time to do the bony bits of the skull, use a bone white. I could actually probably airbrush a lot of this, but maybe I'll stick with the dry brush plan for today. I don't know. I'll think about it. I'll decide as I go. Don't really have a plan for this particular one. I'm just messing around with it. Okay, so I can still see that line there pretty strong, but I'll keep going. There's going to be a couple more coats of the brush on sealer are going to go on that. Okay, so now I want the lighter zone to start coming in around the back of this, of the skull. So the flames are going to be dark right out at the end, and they're going to get lighter as you come in closer, and be almost like white as you get right up behind the skull. But then the skull itself is going to be like kind of a white skull with dark eyes at the front of the flame. That's my plan anyway. That's where I'm headed with this. I just figured out how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to do, I'm doing this dry brushing, and then I'm going to I'm going to airbrush a lighter color. So I'll dry brush red at the back, and then I'll dry brush light, do orange, dry brush light, do yellow, dry brush light, and it'll end up with that gradient, and the final dry brushing will probably be like purple at the tips of the flames to really kind of have a strong contrast between the dark part of the flames and the light. That should look kind of fun. There we go. Yeah, this bone color really dry brushes easily. That was Reaper Polished Bone, I think. Was that one? Could always go the other way and dry brush yellow, then orange, then white, then work your way out to red at the end. But here I am, changing my plan as I go. That's kind of, with these sort of fun speed paints, it gives me, I just mess around. I'm not really too serious about the outcome. But they do got to get done. You need them in your army if you're going to play the game. So that's what we're doing. Here we go. Okay, so that light color is working reasonably well. So now I'm going to do the light colored dry brush on the chromatic core orbs. Cogs, chromatic cogs is what they're called. There we go, a little bit more of a lighter colored dry brush in there. Like that. Lighter color on a smaller dry brush on the inside. A little targeted light color dry brushing. Summoning the chromatic core orbs. No, what are they called? Chromatic cogs. Summoning the chromatic cogs. That's a thing to make your opponent say, I have summoned the chromatic cogs. Tough thing to say. Alright, there we go. I'm liking that. That's probably going to get a bit of blue ink on it too when we do that particular phase of this activity. Clean that air dry brush out again. Alright. Then we need this whoopie doopie beastie. Running out of polished bone, throw a bit more on there. Got a little bit dried out. Let's fix that mess. Clean and dry we need. Okay. A little bit more polished bone. We'll work it in. Take the worst of it off the tip. And then away we go. And my plan on this one, I think, is I'm going to... it's still too heavy. I'm going to dry brush the white again at the end after inking with the purple and the blue. And that'll really kind of keep the shapes looking like smoke and popped out and all that good stuff. Oh, sorry, I was off screen. I would guess that the several hundred people watching were pissed off at me at that moment. That one guy who's watching just laughed when I said the several hundred people that are watching. La la da da da. If you are watching and you have questions, I encourage people to ask questions. I love chatting with people during these various streams that I do. And if you ask a question, it gives me a chance to tell you that I learned everything I know from Miniature Monthly. And how can I talk about Miniature Monthly if you don't ask me any questions? Well, I pretty much talk about them like this and say that they're awesome, because they are. I've learned a ton from those guys. Their videos are awesome. Aaron, Liz, and Matt are awesome. They're all great instructors. And I feel lucky to be part of this crew. And somebody that they trust enough to be broadcasting on their channel, demonstrating the stuff I've learned from them. I appreciate that opportunity very much. But if you want to learn to do what I learned to do, you take classes from them. Take a monthly one-on-one mentoring class from Aaron, or go see Liz at the Atlanta Military Model Show, or go join Matt on a Bahamas cruise and spend a week painting with him every evening on the cruise as you go about the Caribbean. And yeah, lots of opportunities to take classes from those folks. Plus they have tons of online videos that are really, really worth your time. Okay, so that's just about enough to be ready for ink. Nah, it's not really light enough to be ready for ink, but I am going to dry brush white on top of it afterwards, so I'm going to live with that. What is next? Probably actually inking those is next. So, I do feel like I need a lighter color. So let's do, I don't know, I haven't used this paint in like 9 years, but let's do it anyway. Linen white. There we go. Nice bright white. We're going to do a little bit of dry brushing on linen white just to kind of to go lighter than I need to, because the glaze I'm going to do right now is going to dull things down. And then I'll do a pure white dry brush after I've done the inks and the colors and all that kind of good stuff, and that'll help tie everything back together when I'm done. Remember, we're not trying to win Golden Demon here, we're just trying to get painted spell effects onto the table. Although if I ever did go to Golden Demon, I'm very tempted to enter a squad of spell effects and see how that goes over. Just for no particular reason other than I think it'd be cool to do a diorama, and in the diorama have the spell effects, like do a Quicksilver Blades and then have chopped up bits of Nurgle Demon laying all over the battlefield behind it in the diorama, or have the like do two dioramas, and one diorama is some dark elf standing in front of the umbral spell portal, about to be stabbed by somebody who's trying to stop them from casting the spell, and have a second diorama which is another umbral spell portal, but there's like spell effects coming out of it and like totally gutting some poor innocent Khorne bloodletter, or maybe something that's a little bit more vulnerable to magic than a Khorne guy, but maybe Blade Wind, some like really classic dark elf spell coming out of the other. So do two dioramas that are thematically connected but completely physically separate, and that'd be kind of fun. Alright, that's looking ready to get some Flameo Hot Man effects on it. That one's done. Now we just need to do a little bit more on this one. I'm kind of tempted to do this the same way on the what are those things called? Words, Batman, words. Quicksilver Blades, but I think I'm going to stick with my golden smoke plan for those ones. I think that'll work well enough. So I really want to hit the tops of these with this lightest color. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It's not intended to be perfect. And it won't be, it really won't be perfect. It's just enough that the ink has something to change the color. Now when I go and do the ink, I'm not going to do that on camera because I don't really want to put my airbrush onto my painting desk at the moment. I've got too many half-finished projects nearby, and I don't want to risk any overspray on anything. But I am trying to paint well, unlike these things, which I'm just trying to get done to the level of cool. That's going to look cool. Ah, look at the vortex of hammery death. Love it. Hammery death vortex. Okay. Let that dry for a moment. We're going to let those guys dry. I'm pretty happy with that, actually. I need a little bit more lighter on the front. Definitely needs more lighter on the front. It's going to get that later. Let's do a bit of my favorite golden blonde on the front of that. That'll make the yellow really come out when we go to that phase. There we go, golden blonde. Golden blonde dry brush. That's golden blonde from Reaper. It's that one. It's a good paint. It's actually one of Reaper's magic paints. Reaper has a few magic paints that I really like. That's one of them, because you can take literally any color and build a highlight with it with that color. So you don't just like highlight with that. You add a tiny bit of that at a time into whatever color you're working with, and it is literally any color. And you can build up the value. I mean, not pure white, obviously, but any paint with a lower value. And because it's got just a touch of yellow in it, so it's a warm yellow off-white, you start adding tiny little bits of that at a time in smaller increments into your paint, and it warms it up a little bit, and it increases the value, and you can build up highlights with just about anything with that. And as a beginner trying to learn how to mix your own paints and build highlights and that kind of stuff, it is a really good paint to learn with. It's a very useful paint. And I like burgundy wine for the opposite reason. It's a dark, dark purple color, and you can add it into just about anything and create a shadow without using black to darken things up, which tends to create dirty looking effects. Now I need to do a little bit brighter on this skull than I did on the other ones, because I'm going to do flames on this. I'm not just doing like spooky smoke, so we need to go quite a bit lighter. So that was dragon white I just threw on there. So this is essentially a pure white over the top of the yellow. There we go. It's going to look pretty cool. Very flamey-o, hot man. If you don't watch the Avatar Last Airbender series, you don't know what you're missing. And you don't know what the hell I'm talking about when I say flamey-o, hot man. Definitely a show that's worth your time. Alright, worth my time anyway. I enjoyed it. Brush on sealer again over that crack. Get some brush on sealer into the palette. Ooh, that was way too much in the palette. That was a waste. Oh well. We'll keep filling in that crack as we go with the brush on sealer. There we go. My favorite part of the day, the pee parade has started next door. You're going to have to listen to about 10 people use the washroom, one after the other in a row now, because the walls here are like paper thin. And I can see, yeah, the mic's picking it up. So the internet just listened to that man next door pee. Gotta love that. And away we go. Okay, so now I'm going to plug in the airbrush, let that get air loaded up on that, it's all ready to go. Plug it in. Plug it in. Plug it in. Go. While that is loading with air, I'm going to dry brush Palomino Gold onto the Quicksilver blades. There's Quicksilver Palomino Gold. That's way too much paint as usual. Where's that small dry brush? Small dry brush. Let's use the Palomino. Oh, I need to clean that out a little bit. Okay, Palomino Gold. This is a good color for, it's like a yellow ochre. It can be pretty good for doing NMM gold effect. Nice color. Alright, here we go. There's our, so just gonna, no, that's way too much paint. And a sort of a golden tint into our little happy smoke effect. Do that on the other side as well. I don't know if you can hear that clicking, probably not because the airbrush is on, the compressor is on, but that clicking is the sound of the metal ferrule of these brushes hitting the model, which is what I was worried about, the way that the brush is designed, the metal, it's a little too close to the tip of the bristles, and if the bristles were a little stiffer or packed a little denser, this brush would work a little bit better. my skill was higher, it would probably work better too, but you know, in the absence of skill, we want good products, right? I never actually looked up to see what the official way to paint these is. Probably should have done that before I started. I mean, for the Quicksilver blades, it's obviously some sort of golden colored smoke. But I should have looked up to see what paint they actually use. There is a very distinctive orange color in what they're doing. I wonder, let's look it up. Let's take a quick look and see what it says for the paints to use. It usually will list a bunch of paints. Amber, flame, aged brass, amber. Click contrast mode. Oh, we have to refresh the page. The paint picker doesn't work very well on the Games Workshop website. Who'd have thought? Click on amber. Amber, Cassandra yellow, Seraphim and Screaming Skull. Contrast method. Select a paint. Amber, Nazdrag yellow and Screaming Skull. I could see doing the sepia on this, but I'm not gonna. I'm going to use, well, I was going to use Buckskin Pale, but it's essentially the same color as Reaper Golden Blonde. So I'll just add that into the dry brush mix and keep going for smoky goodness. Gently dry brushing. And maybe I'll ink some sienna, raw sienna on this. The orange. Could also edge highlight this a little bit to bring the smoke out. Don't really need to do that. It's just a spell effect. I mean, personally, I feel like the spell effects deserve to look cool. I have themed spell effects for all my armies. My two armies. The spell effects are painted to match the theme colors of the army. But everybody looks at it in a different way. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm kind of liking that. I bet you if I... Oh, I'm tempted to do the sepia on that. And then dry brush it again afterwards. Ooh, tempting. Tempting. I have to think about it. Starting to gain the look that I was hoping for. Sort of wispy looking gold smoke. The camera blows it out. The camera doesn't really handle color balance very well. I mean, it looks pretty sharp, but it doesn't really have the right color showing. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, clean out the dry brushes quickly. I know there's some secret rule about always wipe your brushes, never wash them or something, but like I said before, if I played 40k I'd be a heretic, but I don't, so I don't care. Okay, happy with that. The other one. Oh, that was easy clean because I never used that dry brush. Let's do this one now. This one's going to be more messy. Full of white paint. Golden blonde paint. Gray paint. Chunks of junk out of that. There we go. Okay, that'll work. Now, what we need to do is going to do some quick airbrushing. Purple into blue, so we'll use... Okay, well I've got... That's green. I want blue. All the inks are already over the airbrush. I'll be right back. And we need to take these with us. We'll take that one and that one. This one is getting fiery red, blood red. We want shot in the heart. Come on, I know you're here, red. Blood red. That one. Okay. Blue ink first. No, purple ink first. Purple ink. That's no good. Need to clean out the water. Blue, we need blue ink now. More blue ink. Suppose I could have brought a camera over by the airbrush. That'll work. Okay, so those two were done. There's that one, and we got that one. Now I gotta clean the airbrush and do the red. I'll be right back. We're getting there. Now, oh no, bent my airbrush needle. Red and yellow. First, we're going to do one. Gold yellow and then red, and that will then be our start point. This one looking for really intense yellow. And then we're going to mix some red. And we're going to dry brush orange over the middle. And that will give us Flameo Hot. Yes, there we go. And now we have our flaming, first step of our flaming skull. Looking pretty flamey-o. Right. So I often have people talking about they'd like to do airbrushing, but it's too expensive, or they don't want to. They buy an expensive army when they already have an army, and I get the urge to buy new models all the time. But when you could spend the money on an airbrush compressor, all that stuff instead first, then buy, then the armies that you've got are going to be a lot more fun to paint, and you're going to get them done. And done is always a good thing. Stop putting the gray armies on the table, get the airbrush, get them done faster. I mean, look at that. Like, you could do a whole Nighthaunt army in this style like that, and that'd be perfectly cool to put onto the. You just don't do it with flame colors. You do it with blue and green and your smoky. I put the the Nighthaunt Gloom, the Hexwraith Flame, and the Nihilus Oxide through the airbrush. And if you want to have the technical effect, you just kind of overload it a little bit, or you just do the. If you just want the color transition, easy. You put one color on, dry brush over the transition, put the second color, dry brush over the transition, do the third color. And through the airbrush, it makes all of that go 10 times faster. And then you can do it on, your armies are going to get done. Same thing with Nurgle. You can do one disease color, dry brush, another disease color, plague green into gross green, into slime green, into pus yellow, into whatever. Just airbrush one, dry brush the transition, keep going. And I know everybody talks about, slap chop and all that kind of stuff, which is good, but you can. I do like the idea of slap chop. I like that it gets people that wouldn't normally think about highlighting, thinking about light. And once you see the effect that slap chop has in terms of lighting, you're going to want to do more of it, and that's always good. But if you've got the means to buy an airbrush, and if you're buying $1,000 armies, you can afford to set up an airbrush. The effect that it has on the final look of your army is just outstanding. Really worth the effort. All right, so I dry brushed a very high value color, Vallejo Sunny skin tone over the transition in this case. Okay, and now I'm going to dry brush Reaper Fire Orange over the transition to turn it orange. And it's going to look too shadowy. There's got that shadow color in the middle, which is from the Zenithal highlighted at the start, so it's a bit black and gray. And then I did that dry brush that made it gray. But it's going to have a lot of depth to the flame. I think it's going to look pretty cool, so that's the way we're going. That's what I'm doing. And I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll start putting some of this orange on. Not too much. Just over the transition zone. Make it look really flamey. Yeah, I'm digging that. I'm liking it. If you go too light, too orange, on the red side, you just dry brush the same red back over it. If you do it too much on the light side, which I've done, and I've kind of little bit intentionally. I'm going to dry brush white over that side and then come back in and do some more yellow. Or maybe I'll dry brush yellow first and then white. I got to paint the skull bit and then transition it into the skull with the yellow. It's looking pretty cool, very hot rod flamey as opposed to like a true flame effect, right? True flame effect would have the white in the lowest parts in each flame, but I don't care. I like it. And, you know, if the customer likes it, that's brilliant. If he doesn't like it, I'll just do it again. I'm having fun painting either way. Now, if I was doing a whole army like this, I would send him a sample first. I'd be like, okay, does this color work for you or not? And if he's like, you know what, I want the flame effect to be done differently, then do it differently. But it's just a one-off, kind of one spell effect model. Not worried about it. And I'm having fun, so that's all that matters at this moment in time. Okay, so that's pretty happy. I need some more white. Let's get that dragon white back out again. Can highlight white. So how did I manage to get red spatter all over the front of that? That was from dry brushing, I would guess. Or maybe that was spatter from my airbrush. I don't know. Didn't seem like it was spattering or sputtering when I was doing it earlier. Okay, now I need my forceps. Little forceps are right here on the table. There we go. And I'm gonna there's a little bit of a hair stuck on there. Get rid of that. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he asked what these were called, and I said forceps. And he's like, no, they're not. Those are for something else. But yes, those are called forceps. Bing, 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 forceps. Oh, I already got that on the palette. Let's pick a different brush. Let's use, I guess we use the same one again. Doesn't matter. A little bit of dragon white on there. I'm very white. Don't do too much of that. We're just gonna hit those zones at the front of the flame. I suppose you could like do a wash with a white paint around the front of the skull to bring in that white effect. Maybe I'll do that in a minute here and see how that looks. Not a wash. I'll manually paint in some really bright white around the back of the skull. We'll see how that looks in terms of the flame. Don't really need it though. That's looking pretty scully good. Scully good. Paint some full-on white right on this front edge. At the base of the flames would be quite light. And we'll do some dry brushing of yellow over top of that. And then we'll put a painted skull out in the front of it. And that's probably going to be good enough for this project. Dun, dun, dun. Right, there we go. Super hot skull at the front. And then we're going to... I have to let that dry for a minute, actually, before we do some final white on it. But now, while we're waiting for that, we can do some more Dragon White dry brushing. Is this the one I was using for this? Yeah. And we need to do that not on the Quicksilver blades. We need to do that on the Chronomatic cogs. Over with that blue ink. Make them look more smoky again. Smoky. That works. Smoky-ish. And same thing on the whirling hammers of death. Not just any hammers of death. The whirling hammers of death. You can see the purple to blue transition hopefully in that. Blue, purple. Those are pretty good. And we want this to be quite just... This is the final bit, right? So we don't need to be... Just want to catch the most raised bits of the smoke. We don't want to make it so heavy that the smoke color disappears. I don't know if you can see that, but the ox hair and these army painter brushes is shedding a fair bit from this larger brush. And I did notice when I first started using the smallest one that I did get quite a bit of loose hair falling out of it, which I assume is normal for these at the start. Hopefully it doesn't continue indefinitely, though. I'm just trying to hit a little bit of the smoke just to bring it back up again. That little bit of a dry brush value sketch that I did at the start really had its effect. Very happy with that. You could always dry brush with like a purple or a blue or something over this instead of with a white. And that would kind of set your highlights and set your final color. But this was my plan. And oddly, for once, I stuck with it. The worst part about this is going to be doing the wash over the gold hammers. That is going to be a pain in the butt. To do that without making a huge mess. That will be a challenge. Oh, I wonder if the big shopping trip has concluded. I think I hear a truck outside. Be doing a whole bunch of buildings and things, and those supplies should be here today. Yeah, not the best dry brush work I ever did, but I'm pretty happy with that result. Alright, so now I need to do a little bit more. I'm just trying to decide if I want to do a white dry brush on those or just leave it. Well, I've decided to do white. That was a rapid decision. And maybe I will airbrush the sepia from underneath to get that orange tone that I was hoping for. Make these look a little bit more golden. Golden smoke in the Quicksilver blades. Sounds like the name of a cowboy posse. Golden smoke, Quicksilver blades. I'm actually pretty happy with that. I could just leave it like that. A little bit lighter. Yeah, Just a little bit lighter. Okay, that's ready for some super fancy paint. Okay, happy with that. Happy with that. That one's dry brushed. This one needs yellow. We need a warm yellow. That means sun yellow from Reaper. Warm yellow, Flameo. Gotta stop saying Flameo Hot Man. I don't really have to stop saying it, but I should probably try. Alright, let's see if we can, let's clean that brush first. Should do that, forgot to do that last time. Clean that out a little bit. Get our happy pin. Clean out the neck of this bottle. Get some yellow paint. Bloop. Don't need much. Got our happy little dry brush. Just dampen it slightly. Load it with yellow. Now, I don't want to push hard with this because the yellow is supposed to be high on the outside, not in the white in the inside. So I could probably actually edge highlight this would be better, but just a little bit of yellow on these most raised areas of these little flamey skulls. The transition zones. There we go, pretty happy with that. Looking pretty flamey. Now we got to do some scully bone on the front of that. Scully old bone, scully old bone. So we have polished bone right there. And I think I'm going to mix some wolf gray with that stone color, or bone color. And that's going to be the main color of my skull here. So we'll paint the front of this skull with this color. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to bring back the transitions in a minute. With everybody's favorite tool, the dry brushing. If anybody out there listening has any questions, you are more than welcome to jump in and ask a question. Always interested in knowing what people are interested in, what you'd like to talk about. If you want to argue the relative value of the various endless spells in the game, I'm game for that. Because everybody knows that the most useful endless spell in the game, without a doubt, bar none, is Emerald Life Swarm. If you don't agree with that, you're not an Age of Sigmar player. That's my gauntlet thrown down for the day. How's that meme go? The best endless spell is Emerald Life Swarm. Prove me wrong. I mean, every spell is going to be situational. But Emerald Life Swarm seems to be every situational. particularly if you don't have any other easy ways to bring back slain models, which is the case for many, many factions. They don't have any inherent method of bringing back their dead dudes. I just do whatever I feel like. I have a look at the box art. Like, I went back and looked at the references for some of these, just to kind of get a sense of what's the general idea behind it. But then I just paint pretty much whatever method I feel like, however I feel like at the given moment. Sometimes they look right, sometimes they look like junk. But these are not meant to be, display pieces or anything like that. They're just meant to get onto the table as for a game, so they can look pretty rough. What about you? When you're painting, do you follow the box art? And I would mention, these are a commission project, but what the guy said was he just wanted them just good enough to throw on the table for a game. He doesn't want them super premium or anything like that. And he didn't really care about the colors, so that gives me the freedom to kind of play around a little bit. Yeah, right on. Yeah, sometimes the box art is really inspirational. And sometimes it kind of gives you that feeling like, yeah, that's the right way to paint them. That's the way they should look. I do a lot of, that's what this whole painting session is about, is Stormcast Eternals. So those Stormcast Eternal box arts, they really do inspire you to paint them those colors. But often I find that the box art, it inspires me to paint something else with those colors, like the Night Haunt that I was looking at inspired me to paint all my endless spells from my Dark Elf army as right, this Burning Head is for my Dark Elf army, but I got inspired for it by the Night Haunt. Then I went and painted this for the Dark Elves. Then I got inspired to paint my Night Haunts in that color. It's kind of a inspiration is good, right? I get inspired by all kinds of different things. Museums. My painting mentor. I take painting classes every month, and that guy inspires me a lot. I'm really happy with the way this skull is looking now, actually. Do you play any games? Or you just like the painting side of things? And if you do play any games, I'd be curious to know what games you do play. D&D and Warcry, right on. Yeah, D&D was one of the main things that inspired me to paint minis. Getting the minis ready for the game, and quite often the paint's still wet when they hit the table. like that. I'm kind of interested in trying Warcry 2. I have a couple of Warcry bands. But the group around here is more interested in playing Mordheim. So I'm probably more likely to end up playing Mordheim than I am to be playing Warcry, which I'm kind of okay with, since I've already got some models that can be used for Mordheim. What I really need to do is find a new D&D game. I've been looking for a while, and I've yet to find a game that was kind of the right time and place. There was a couple that looked interesting initially, but then I just really... I have my own game shop here, and the idea of going to somebody else's game shop and paying to play there really doesn't appeal to me. So I'll eventually find a group that's interested in playing here, maybe, or... The other thing is, I don't want to play online. I want to play in person, so that we can use minis, because that's where it is. That's where it's at for me. Yeah. I love that when the monster's dead before the paint's dry. Unfortunately, it happens a lot with player characters too. You know about the player character painted mini curse. That's where your character, if you are playing an established character and you give them a new painted mini to use, they're going to die that game. That's why you should always have your mini painted before you start playing a character, to avoid the painted mini curse. I don't know how many times I've seen that happen. Usually, because I painted the mini for the guy, put it on the table, and then that game, his character dies. I don't know if that's a statement on the quality of my paint jobs, but it happens quite a lot. Well, it used to happen quite a lot when I was playing D&D more. I should say at all, because I haven't been playing much D&D. I'm pretty happy with that. I could comfortably call that guy done. He definitely has the flaming skull look. It's going to look good on the table. Charging his way up there to burn somebody, so I'm happy with that. We can call that guy done, except for we do all the bases for this whole army the same color, so I'll dry brush all of these guys with the army colors later on, once they're all done. Alright, so that bit is done. Now the next stage is going to be to paint metallics. Now I do need to paint these little bits white, but I'm going to do that later so that I can dry brush all the metallics without worrying about hitting the painted white after it's already done. So next step is going to be painting metallics. So Balthazar Gold is the next one. Balthazar Gold is going to be on a ton of this. So Balthazar Gold is hiding somewhere on this table. And with luck, we will find it. Nope, that's Mephiston Red. Chainmail Silver. Auric Armor Gold. We're getting closer, though. Retributor Base. Liberator Gold. All my favorite gold. But that's not what we're looking for. We want... Come on, Balthazar. Come on, Balthazar. There you are, hiding back in the corner. Not much Balthazar Gold left in this bottle. So we'll probably end up using it up on this project. Somehow that brush did not get cleaned earlier. I had a 3-hour painting class this morning. That went a bit overtime, which is why I was late getting started today. And some of the stuff at the end of that class, I was a bit rushed coming over here. Hopefully I cleaned all my good brushes. I have a feeling I didn't. Yeah, look at that. That Winsor & Newton is really a mess. Alright, do I need a fresh palette paper? Probably. Am I going to do it? No. Let's just load a whole bunch of Balthazar Gold on the palette. That's a mistake, but I'm doing it anyway. And we need a tiny bit, the tiniest bit of flow improver to make this Balthazar Gold work in a happy way. There we go. Tiny bit of flow improver over there. Now, flow improver on the brush into the Balthazar Gold. And now we are off to the races. We're going to paint all of this Balthazar Gold, followed by a brown dry brush. I probably could airbrush this on, actually, now that I think about it. But I've started, so it's too late. And this is not going to be the most comprehensive base coat because I'm intending for dark colors to show underneath. I can probably dry brush this on, actually. Here I am, starting to do things without thinking about it. Just following along, blithely and blindly. Alright, I see that I'm back on my own, I think. Oh well. At least the music is not knocking me out of the studio. Last week, for this painting session, I had to leave the mic turned off the whole time because the music was so loud in other parts of the building that we would have got copyright strike if I'd left the music on. So, I'm glad that this week the people are being very courteous and they are not blasting us out of the studio this afternoon. I really appreciate that. It can be very frustrating being here trying to paint and having that. It's not just that it's loud, it's that you can't make out what the music is. I would happily sing along and listen if I could hear what the music was. You can't quite hear it well enough to know what it is. So it's just like irritating at the edge of your nerves, this monotonous, continuous and screaming and whatever's going on in the music. But you can't really hear it well enough to listen to the song. And that's frustrating on top of the issues with not being able to have it go through the mic for the Twitch stream. So I'm happier today. Not as happy, I think, as the many thousands of people who are enjoying their first day of Adepticon. I'm sure Aaron and Liz, I think I saw some posts from Aaron and Liz. They're having a lovely time so far. They've got all their classes on the go. And I hope it is going very well for them. They've got tons of classes, and there'll be tons of people now. All the Golden Demon entries will be arriving on the shelves there to be seen by everybody. I think that's really cool. Not a Golden Demon fan myself. I've never entered, and I think I was joking earlier about entering some endless spells in Golden Demon, but not really my thing. Painting contests in general are not really my thing. I don't feel motivated to paint for painting competitions. And when I used to try to do things to promote the company, I would go to miniature painting contests, but I don't need to do that anymore. These days I'm pretty much just trying to get work done and catch up on the massive backlog. At any given moment we have usually 6 to 8 months of minis backed up to be painted. So I'm not too worried about promoting the company too much, and enjoying the painting that I do get. And that's why this is on Aaron's channel, not on my channel, because we're trying to help Aaron grow the Miniature Monthly family, and I don't really need to worry about too much about growing the mini painting side of things here in the studio. We're trying to do something very different from what Aaron and Liz are trying to do. I'm glad to be part of it. Very, very friendly, welcoming group of people. Glad to be there. I wonder if we should have a paid endorsement disclaimer at the start of these painting events. Although I don't get any, I don't get like I pay to be part of Miniature Monthly, so you say this presenter is paying to promote somebody else's company. That'd be more fair. All right, there we go. There's the first rough brass coat. Balthazar gold coat, I should say. That's going to get Agrex Earthshade over it, and then we're going to dry brush the snot out of that with some color. I think it's called Retributor Armor Base. All right, that's that one. Now we're going to do the Chronomatic Cogs. That's the next one. We're a little bit more careful about this one. I don't really want to spread this too far onto the smoky effect. If I do go too far, we will dry brush the transitions. Conceal our sins. Same thing on these ones. I think the only reason I'd be interested in going to Adepticon these days would be to hang out at the... oh, shit. Got gray paint in my gold. That was not intentional. Would be to hang out at Fort Wapel and just paint and chat with people. But it's a long way to go to just sit and paint. I do like the idea of hanging out and chatting with people. I've had some really good hangout conversations with people at Adepticon. But I saved my money for going to ReaperCon again this year. In fact, I bought my plane tickets to ReaperCon yesterday. Very excited about that. Now I just got to secure a hotel room and all that good stuff. I'm planning to teach again at ReaperCon. I'm going to do my Painting Eyes is Secretly Easy class. And we're going to do underpainting for OSL, which are two classes that so far have always kind of sold out and people are asking for more of them to be done. The other classes I did, I wasn't super happy with how they went. The time frame wasn't really right for the content. So we'll probably forgo those ones. So it's like the tartan class and the take it to 11 highlighting class. Need more time than 90 minutes for those. And I'm not sure if I'll come up with a new class or just stick with those ones that have been popular so far. I always find myself like going back to the Reaper forum, trying to see what people are looking for classes, and what they liked, what they didn't like, but also, you know, something which is going to be useful for setting a foundation for whatever people are going to do in the future. I find that's the challenge, is to don't want to just teach a class which is a specific here and now technique that only worked for that one thing. You want techniques that are going to be usable for a diverse, that are kind of applicable to more than one situation. And that's like the Painting Eyes is Secretly Easy class. It contains a lot of elements that are kind of driving how do you paint freehand. And I really like the Celtic Knotwork class. We had quite a few people take that class that were looking for something a little different than usual. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll do Celtic Knotwork, the Painting Eyes, and the Underpainting class. We'll see how that goes this time. So if I did it the way I was planning, that would be 9 classes. No, 12 classes. Oh my god, I can't do 12 classes. That's crazy. But I was thinking about doing 8, in the sense of doing Painting Eyes is Secretly Easy every morning, 4 days in a row. And then doing Underpainting class. Maybe do the underpainting class twice and the Celtic knotwork class twice. That would be 8. That's a manageable load. They're all classes I've taught before, so I know how to make them run smoothly. And they seem to be classes that people want. So maybe we'll try that. That might be a little bit too much, but I don't know. We'll see. Fucking sparrows. Sparrows. Spammers dealt with. Sorry. I really do need music going while I'm painting, otherwise I start to go a little bit crazy. And nobody likes a crazy painter. It's not quite true. They seem to like Picasso and all those guys well enough, don't they? Yep. Trying to paint behind. It's a bit of a challenge. Got all these gear beds that they've incorporated into the center of the smoke. That's a little irritating, I gotta say. There's one. There's another. Really encourages you to follow their set method for painting them, I guess. Which essentially is to spray can them with a base color and then I'm guessing it would be not brassy brass, what's their color? Balthazar gold from a spray can. And then paint the smoke last. Nothing wrong with that, just a different approach. It's going to look good when I'm done anyway. I mean, good enough. You don't need to look great. They're going to look good. I swear, I'm not trying to just reassure myself that I'm not making a mistake. I do have a plan. I'm following my plan. My plan is a bit chaotic and random, but I am following it. More or less. Mostly. Sort of. I wonder what is going on with the guy that is supposed to be bringing all the supplies today. I thought he was going to be here fairly early on, and we are about to have a great big snowstorm today. So it's not going to be a good day for unloading paper and stuff into the studio. What time is it anyway? 3:30. 3:30. Alright, what color did I say I was going to use as a wash on these? Agrax Earthshade was my plan. I wonder if non-oily, but no, Agrax Earthshade. We want that brownish sort of warmth. And over the zones that are kind of black in the background, this Agrax is going to make them look like dark tarnished brass. I could always, no, I was going to say put some sort of corrosion effect looking stuff on these, but that would be going a little further than I really want to. These are another piece that would be really easy to paint before assembling. It only has like those two main halves. I guess it's a 3-part model, right? But I don't know. It's not the way I did it. So that is going to look good with some brown wash and some dry brushing on it. Even just done kind of, I don't want to say half-assed, but like in a very casual way like that, they're still going to look really, really good compared to most of the stuff that'll be on the table around them. So we can be happy with that. Then these guys, I think if I remember correctly, these guys are meant to be like golden blades. Let's see, where's a picker of those dudes? There they are. Yeah, golden handles. Golden handles. So, shall we do these brassy brass? Not brass. I keep saying brassy brass. That's not the color. They're going to be... I don't know what to do. I'm going to do the brown Agrax Earthshade wash on those two, because they're ready for it. And then I'm going to go back and do the thing in the place on the other ones. That's my plan. Hopefully this will go off without too much problem. I'll do the one that's drier first. Need quite a lot of brown wash on that. Not being super careful here because I don't want to spend a huge amount of time, mostly, but I do want the Agrax to go on there fairly thick. In order to The deep recess shading I'm looking for. Now, where this one lays horizontal, it's not going to be too much of a problem. Not going to have to worry too much about things like that real pooling effect that you get, but I will be cautious about it. Oh, maybe that's my supply guy trying to reach me. Either that or my phone's dying. Oh, the phone's dying. That's what it is. 3 missed phone calls. Susan McKenzie.